welcome to those of you who are tuning in live or watching this after the fact. This is our first time doing an effort like this, and I think we will probably make it an annual event, but we're here to answer any questions that you might have about the research experience undergraduate program. And that is run every summer at the MagLab. For those of you who are not familiar, the MagLab is a interdisciplinary facility. And I would highly encourage you to go tune in to the open house tour that Carlos and Kristen have done through Open House. But we have chemists, we have physicists, we have engineers, we have a variety of types of disciplines that undergraduates can come and do a research project on. So with that, I'm going to pose a question to Amy or Dr. McKenna in this case of what kind of things are you looking for in your REUs, in these students who apply? What are some of the things that you're looking for that makes a student stand out to you for a 10-week research experience?
So one of the things that I really look for when I'm searching through a wide range of applicants for the REUs that are interested is somebody who may or may not think that they're ready to go all the way to graduate school. Maybe somebody who's a little bit on the fence as to if graduate school is something that they would consider. A lot of times, you know, personally, I was never a straight A student. I started at a community college. So I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for people who might not consider themselves to be able or qualified or smart enough to go to a 4-year or 5-year graduate program for the hard sciences, because that's the way that I felt. And I still suffer massively from the imposter syndrome, even after being at the MagLab for 15 years. So to me, I always want to have somebody that is interested in science, but might not think that they're, I don't think I can go to grad school. You know, I don't get straight A's in all of my chemistry classes. So graduate school definitely isn't for me. And I really want people to be able to learn that research is not like any other field that you go into, and you don't always know the answers. You just have to know how to ask the questions. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who's interested in science, but might not really have a clear, direct path on what they want to do, and who can really benefit the most from seeing the way that science actually is. It's really not, you know, this formal, we all know the answers, we all know how everything's going to work, you know, this kind of arrogance that tends to come across sometimes when people think about science. I really want people to see, look, most of the time we don't know how it's going to go. We're really just a bunch of big kids that play with things, and our toys are just really big magnets and really big equipment, and we try to find the answers, and we have fun every day. And so I really want people to be able to experience, like, you know, the formality kind of drops when you start doing research in the lab. And so I want people who can really see themselves going to graduate school and going to the next phase in their scientific career.
We definitely have fun. That is
true.
Before I go on, I was going to ask Miranda a question. Before I do that, there was a question in the chat. Even if you've participated in the REU before, if you've been an intern at the MagLab before in any capacity, you can most definitely apply for the program. Selection is based on the mentors. So what Amy's criteria is, that's a number of our mentors. That's what they're looking for. People who I did a informal survey of our mentors, and they said what they're looking for are folks that can indicate that they are willing to work hard and persevere through setbacks, because that is also part of the research aspect. So I wanted to pose a question to Miranda. What made you apply? What motivated you to apply to the REU program when you did it?
Okay. Mostly, I guess, my mentor at my undergrad institution. Well, to start, I was looking to, finish my program in undergrad and graduate, and you need to have either research or like a senior SEM. I didn't really want to do senior sim. I wanted to do research, and I guess I had been lamenting to him too much about how, oh, I don't know how, like what to do, blah blah blah. And he was like, well, why don't you go ahead and apply for this? And I said, okay. And we got in, and I really liked doing the research, and I kept up with that kind of project line until I graduated. And now I'm in grad school, so I guess I liked it a lot. So
Had you had experience, Miranda, with research before you did the REU program?
no, it was my first like venture into research. So I was really scared because
Yep.
obviously I wasn't at my undergrad institution, but it was nothing to be scared of.
I think that's a great segue. We have another REU alum that I think Carlos is working. I can see him actively working to get her in. But while we're waiting, Miranda and Dr. McKenna, if you want to speak to how did you get over that fear, Miranda? And in what ways did your mentor in the REU experience kind of help you with that?
I really want to say that getting over that fear was it was a lot of Amy's personality and reassurance that I could do this and I, deserve to be there. And then also understanding that, everyone else doesn't know absolutely everything. And everyone's there to learn, even though they have all these advanced degrees. And I was a sophomore in undergrad at the time, and I definitely had no idea what was going on. So being allowed that like freedom to ask questions, not feeling that there were any stupid questions, really helped. And that's how I became more comfortable. And that really helped me finish my undergrad degree, even it was just with my regular coursework as well. Just that confidence that like it's okay to be wrong and it's okay to ask questions.
I love that. So we have Kiara Reed with us too, another of our alumni or alumna from our REU program. So Kiara, I'm going to ask you the same question that I posed to Miranda. What motivated you to apply to the program?
What first motivated me to apply to the program is I attended the Tallahassee Science Festival, and I walked up to the MagLab table and I saw everybody doing all of these cool experiments, and I just really wanted to be a part of that. And I walked up to an intern and I asked him, I said, "Do you have any programs that I could possibly be a part of?" Because I was already curious about chemistry. Although I'm a biology major, chemistry was definitely one of my weak points, and I wanted to gain more experience on that side. And he told me to research my current mentor now, Dr. Wan Chen, and I contacted her, and she encouraged me to apply to the program. So I definitely got motivation from the Science Festival.
And then Kiara, had you ever done research before you came to the REU program?
No, that was my first one.
Very cool. So I hear from both Miranda and Kiara, you had a mentor that promoted the program to you. Let's say there's folks that are tuning in that don't have a mentor that's actively promoting it. What advice would you give to them as alumni of the program? What would you say if they don't have a scientist? What would you say to help them overcome that fear? Maybe they thought about applying, but they haven't applied yet. What would be some advice that you would give to them?
One, just submit the application. Definitely try to find someone to review it for you. Maybe if there's something at school that you can office that you can talk to get that application reviewed. But in general, you don't really necessarily need like a mentor at your undergrad institution to be able to do this, I think, because you'll get set up with one once you arrive, and then you can help develop a project to take back to your undergrad institution. So advice, find someone to review your application, to just, bite the bullet and apply. It'll be okay.
I think, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kiara.
Another thing I want to add to that is to just be yourself. There's nothing to be nervous about. You will never gain opportunities if you don't put yourself out there. So I recommend just taking that leap of faith and also getting other people to review your application, definitely, to make sure that you didn't miss anything. But as she previously stated, you will be matched with a mentor.
Amy, you were going to say something.
I was just going to add that I get a lot of emails from people that are interested about the REU that I have maybe that have been exposed to the MagLab through either doing a tour or from, you know, these outreach events that we do, that send me an email and just say, hey, you know, I saw you give a talk. Do you think that I would be good for the REU program? And then, you know, even if they're not in my field, if they're not interested in environmental chemistry, if they're like, well, I'm more interested in engineering, and we try to place, like, I'll make a contact, like send them over to another physicist or somebody who does engineering and put them in contact with them. Because as Roxanne said, you know, it doesn't matter how many times, you know, it's all about the mentor, the person who wants to do the work with you. You can apply every year that you're eligible for the MagLab summer program. And I had REUs that spent their entire undergraduate every summer working for me, because once I got them trained, then they could come back the next summer and do more research with me. And they've been on publications. So there's always that, you know, send us an email. We're really normal people. You know, I'm sitting here with a beanie on my head because my curly hair like makes the camera angle really weird. Juan is also on. We're very approachable. So please, if you're interested, but you're scared or you're intimidated, send us an email and we're here to help you. We want you to see what real science is like because it's super fun. We have a lot of fun at work. We do a lot of really cool things, and we love meeting and working with undergraduates. You know, Miranda, she's now working at Colorado State in a PhD program with one of the collaborators that I've been working with for 5 or 6 years. And we both went to the same undergraduate. So it's like this really big family at the MagLab where we like to support each other as much as we can. And we want new students and new people to come and join us and have fun working with us.
That's a great segue into my next question for both Miranda and Kiara. How has the REU influenced your current position or where you are now?
Well, I'm in grad school now. Before the REU, I was looking at a career working in like a forensics lab, basically just being a technician. I was thoroughly convinced after a while that that wasn't necessarily for me. I wanted something a little bit more rigorous, more independent work instead of just kind of the same monotonous day to day of working in like a forensics lab. Um, so yeah, really just changed my career goals. So that's what it did for me. Complete kind of 180, if you ask me.
Okay, so before applying to the MagLab, initially I wanted to go straight into medical school. But after completing my REU program at the MagLab, now I want to go to graduate school and get a master's in biotechnology. So I'm applying to graduate school right now. And now I'm more interested in integrating the two fields of environmental sciences and maybe even in the medical field. So although it wasn't a complete 180, it definitely has, I would say, given me a broader idea of what I wanted to do in my career.
So my next question is, what about, neither of you had ever done research before you came to the REU program. What about research was so interesting for you?
What is interesting about research in general to me is solving problems. I've always enjoyed those little like problem solving games. And this is research is just a bigger one, if you ask me. Even though it's not, you know, like curing world hunger or something, even solving like the little problems is super interesting and I think really important in progressing like science forward. So that's what I really like about research. It's problem solving. That's it.
I agree with what Miranda said. And also, I love working with my hands and doing research. It's a lot of different experiments, and also learning more is what I like, and adding and making a difference to the field that I'm working in.
My next question is for Amy. For REUs that are, for people that are applying, can you run through like how you kind of ease them into the research? It's a 10-week program. So for folks that are like, what happens? Am I immediately like using $1 million equipment? Could you just briefly describe how you ease your undergrads into this program?
So I kind of take the same approach when I'm doing the middle school mentorship, as well as high school interns, in that I try to just have a conversation where we just talk, and I introduce some words that might be intimidating to a lot of people, like Fourier transform, ion cyclotron resonance, mass spectrometry. That's a mouthful, and everyone is really overwhelmed with the analytical technique that we do in the ICR facility. But, my first step, and I think, Miranda can speak to this as well, is usually to just sit down over a cup of coffee and kind of talk about what they're interested in. Because for my REUs, I really want them to have a project that they're excited about. I don't want to just say, here's what I'm excited about, and so therefore you should be excited about it too. Often, with students, especially, I like to ask questions, and I try to listen to what questions they might have without overwhelming them. So I really want buy-in. Miranda, when she came, I want them to be interested in the project, first of all, and I want them to be able to have cradle to grave ownership within that 10-week program. So I don't want something that really is going to take 3 years to develop into a project that they can present in a poster. I want them to plan the project, plan out what you're going to do. That's the first step. Within the first couple of weeks of the REU program, we might do a tour of the lab and then start talking about what they're going to do. And I have them start planning out the background of the project they're interested in. And so they're actively writing and working on their poster throughout the entire 10-week session. Because the REU does have an end presentation where you have to give a poster, and I don't want it to be overwhelming to them. I look at it as, let's start working on your poster ahead of time as soon as we can, so that when we get towards the end, it's smooth sailing and you're not stressed out about it and it's already done. And I think that really having conversations where, a lot of people don't ask questions. I want to kind of force them to ask questions. And it's okay to say, I don't know, because I don't really know most of what happens at the MagLab. None of us do. We're all very specialized scientists, and we have very narrow research focus. And once we turn outside of our little silo, the only thing we all have in common is that we work with magnets. That's it. And we have very diverse backgrounds. And so I think it's overwhelming if you look at the MagLab as a broad picture. It's really scary and intimidating. But when you break it down into small chunks, small digestible things for the students that they have ownership of, it makes it a much more fruitful experience. And they get the confidence to know that, okay, this is the steps to doing research. And those steps never change. It's kind of like algebra, right? The numbers change, but the steps to solve the problem don't. And so if you can develop a good set of steps, then you can just tune that towards any problem that you have. And that's what I hope to give them the confidence to be able to, move forward with research.
Awesome. So Miranda and Kiara, same question to you. How did your mentors, Miranda, I know Amy was your mentor, but in what ways did your mentor kind of ease you in, and maybe tell us a little bit about your project that you had during the summer?
So I was looking at dissolved organic carbon in Tampa Bay waters during my REU at the MagLab. And It was 2018, so honestly, the beginning is a little bit fuzzy to me. I'm sure the nerves kind of don't help that my memory. But I do remember coming up with a plan and then getting our samples ready to go run them, whatever, and then analyze them. And the poster I was really nervous about because I'd never done a poster before. I'd never really written, obviously, like a research paper because I hadn't done research prior to that. Um, so I was really made comfortable to, uh-oh, sorry, ask questions and not like, I don't know, be scared because of Amy, because she was also asking other people um, in the department different questions because, you know, she doesn't know like the biology stuff or whatever. So her exemplifying that made me comfortable and, you know, like I fit in and I was like progressing okay.
Okay, so I was a part of the program last spring. So I remember my first day very clearly. I was very nervous and intimidated by looking around and looking at all of the equipment. But my mentor definitely made me feel comfortable and like I belonged there because whatever I didn't know, she always made me feel comfortable asking because I've always been a naturally curious person. So I would always ask her any questions. She would definitely tell me or email me, you know, if you're reading this paper. That's another thing. She gave me a lot of material to read so that I would be caught up with the information. While we were performing experiments, she would ask me, what have you done in class? What courses have you taken? So that I would be familiar with this. And then if I didn't know something, if an area was missing, she would definitely fill those gaps. So a bit about my experience. My experiment was we were working on the dissolved organic matter and the salt marshes. So I didn't get to complete a project because of I didn't get to complete a poster because of the pandemic, but I definitely was a part of the project and conducting the research paper. But I just feel like the most important thing would be to read because it was a lot of reading and getting familiar with the material, and that's what made me feel the most comfortable.
That's a really good point for anyone tuning in. A lot of the times our mentors, once you've been accepted into the program, your mentor might send you some reading material or give you things. So if for example, Amy's talking about ion cyclotron resonance, if like you're hearing that and you're like, what does that mean? The mentors will give you some more reading to look at. And sometimes scientific reading can be daunting or overwhelming. But our mentors are there to help with that. The next question I wanted to pose to all three of you is most of the time the REU is not a one-to-one. So it's not just like Miranda and Amy together. Usually there's a group aspect and you're meeting other people at the lab, other people within these small groups. So if any of you could speak to just the broader kind of network you had at the MagLab within, even if it was in ICR or even at the lab, just speak to that a little bit about the networking.
So I can talk about that real quick. In Miranda's REU program, her project, we only used resources within the ICR facility, but she did work with Juan. We talked to and met everybody, and I tried to introduce them to all the graduate students who were there to kind of give them a flavor of what grad school is like. In other research projects that I've had with REUs, I've tried to introduce them to other parts of the lab. For example, the geochemistry group at the MagLab was involved in helping prepare one sample for an REU in years past who was looking at extraction efficiency out of a shale rock. Well, I don't have the tools to grind a rock because I'm not a geochemist, I'm a regular chemist. But Munir was able to, one of the other professors here at the MagLab helped me out. And we were integrated with his graduate student and we met his postdoc and we saw another part of the lab that I've never even been a part of. And I think that speaks to the bigger overarching feeling of the MagLab is when you have an REU, everyone kind of stops what they're doing and helps, even if it's outside of their highly specified wheelhouse. If they can help, they do, because we're all, you know, for lack of a better phrase, we're all kind of, you know, thinking of ourselves as, you know, advanced scientific mentors to show people that, you know, this is how we do research. And a lot of times it's like, hey, this is a stupid question, but would you be able to do blah, blah, blah? And they're like, oh yeah, Amy, we can totally do that. But we would never have the ability, we would never have the need to ask these questions if it wasn't for a project for an REU, that we were trying to come up with something for them to do that they had complete ownership of. I also try to walk them around the lab and introduce them to everybody, because we are a huge facility with a lot of different people, just to kind of, oh, you know, that's Roxanne. She's a really fast runner and a rock climber. This is Dave Graff. He's a super fast runner and he works in the physics department here at the MagLab. So, you know, because we're a super fun group of people, you know, I mean, I have no bias there, but I think that, you know, it's important to see that we have students. We have Carlos, who's running middle school students on Fridays. There's a lot of different aspects to what we do. It's not just this really high field, magnetic field, you know, highly specialized research that we do.
Thanks, Amy. That was awesome. So Kiara and Miranda, did you get to meet other people outside of your mentor, and what were some of those experiences like?
Um, Again, this is a while ago, so sorry if I forget or mispronounce people's names. We definitely, I believe, worked with Juan Chen and also Yuri. Um, but as Amy mentioned, we pretty much stayed in the ICR area. I really enjoyed working with them, especially with Juan asking her the different questions. Really helped gain like a fuller understanding of our project. Another person working with Amy at that time had a more like kind of microbiology type component to her project. So working on that really aided her understanding. And for me, just general knowledge is always good. We also, with like the REU, there's obviously other people there working with different mentors, and like every week we would go, they would do a presentation about their research and we'd tour like their facility. So that was also really interesting to see. I had a pretty like specific program in undergrad, so I missed out on kind of a lot of the classic chemistry classes. So listening to their research was kind of a little bit of a crash course in things I was missing. So that was interesting.
Yes, also my experience, I remember my first week, I was given a tour of the facility and I was introduced to everybody in the ICR department. And also I was introduced to various postdocs and other interns. And what I thought was really interesting was the MagLab gets scientists from across the world to use their equipment because it's so extraordinary. And I even got to meet some international scientists.
Really, you both brought up really good points that I had forgotten to mention. During the REU program, each of the REUs will do a tour of their lab. So Miranda was talking about, so of like, let's say there's 15 REUs, each week you'll tour the entire group and kind of talk about your research project. So all of the REUs get to see aspects of the lab throughout the program, not just the first tour when you're overwhelmed by just how large the facility is in general. And then Kiara, thank you too for pointing out, it is incredibly diverse at the MagLab. So a real international group. And then we also, the REUs come from across the country, and our staff come from across the country and across the world as well. So those are really great key points. The poster session, sometimes that's, and Kiara, I know you didn't get to do it because of COVID, but sometimes the poster is is another scary part for our REU participants. So if any of you could speak to, what is the poster session and what is its value, and how do you get over that fear of communicating your science in that format?
So the poster session to me, I mean, leading up to it, I was like, this feels like a final exam. It's not. It's mostly like show and tell from grade school, I think. Um, so obviously putting the poster together was a lot of work and like making sure we had like a complete picture of the project. And that was kind of stressful. Whatever, you get through it. And then you have your poster session. You're like sitting there and standing there in a room with a bunch of other people. And people just walk to you up to you and you're like, hey, what's this about? And then you give them like the crash course, kind of like an elevator pitch. And then if they want to ask more questions, they do. If they don't, they say thank you and they move on. But I really thought it was fun because I've been working like so hard on this. So I wanted to talk about it. And these were people who didn't know what I had been working with. So, and I was answering their questions. So like for a little bit, you're like the expert on something, your project.
So Miranda, along that line, I had a follow-up question for you. How did the REU poster session prepare you for giving posters at national conferences?
I would say it was my first exposure to doing anything like that. So of course, if you try something once, it'll be easier the second time. Preparing from like start to finish. Also thinking on my feet, because you'll do presentations in class and you can kind of expect that your peers aren't going to ask you any questions. But at a poster session, I mean, people are there because they want to know more. They're not just like required to be there. So thinking on your feet, really being familiar with what you're working with instead of just kind of like, well, for presentations for school, you kind of just kind of do the research, kind of know what you're talking about and hope no one asks you anything hard. With this, you know everything because you were there for everything. So you better be able to answer the questions. So just being prepared for that feeling once I went to go do another poster session was really good. And then that was also pretty good preparation for just like finishing my senior year of college.
I think one of the things I try to always instill in my students when they're giving a poster presentation is like, look, nobody else knows what you did better than you. So, Miranda, I think captured that perfectly. Like you're the expert in something, and that feels really good.
Kiara, so you have the unique experience of having been part of a program when COVID hit. And we don't know what the summer will hold for us in terms of in-person versus hybrid. What are some things that, what are some pros and cons of doing research or working with Juan Chen before COVID and during COVID? What are some things that you can kind of tell us about that experience?
The pros and cons. So before I would definitely say the biggest pro is getting more hands-on experience in the lab. I was really excited about that, and I just look forward to getting my hands dirty, basically. The con was, COVID, and I wasn't able to go in the lab anymore. But for me, a big pro was that I was still able to continue research. So I was still able to conduct research remotely and help in data analysis and creating different visualizations that we could use for later projects. I thought that that was a giant pro because so many didn't get to continue on with their research, and I did. And Dr. Wan Chin was the person who kept in contact with me. We had weekly meetings. Whenever I had any questions, she was right there. And it didn't feel like I was remote because she still kept in contact with me as if I was still in person.
I love that. So for anyone who is watching this, just know that the mentors will still be available, even if it's in the Zoom space, whatever happens as we get closer to the summer. And just know that the deadline for your application is March 19th. And we will be working with CDC rules and policies, as well as our safety policies. Because one of the things we did not mention, although Kristen did put it in the chat, is that we are at 3 different locations. The MagLab has 7 facilities across 3 locations. One in Tallahassee, that's our main one, where Kiara, Miranda, and Amy have all been talking about. We have 2 facilities at University of Florida. And then we have a facility at Los Alamos National Lab. So there's the potential to be at any of those, to have a mentor pick you for any of those locations. And for more information on those, please go to our website. But depending on the CDC regulations and the state regulations for each of those, you'll see on the application that you can check which ones you prefer if all of them, and those include in-person, completely, a hybrid, or virtual. And a lot of our applicants have been doing that. So everybody's pretty flexible with that. And we're just going to have to remain flexible because that seems to be the main word for 2020 and 2021. So just to throw that disclaimer out there, and then notification. So March 19th is the deadline. Then we have the mentors review it. So we should be notifying the applicants of their acceptance probably mid-April is the goal for that. Maybe no later than the end of April for you to make those decisions. And just to run through, I know most of you are probably already aware of this, but the program will run June 1st to August 6th of 2021. So those are just some of the administrative duties that I wanted to get out there. Are there any questions from the chat, Kristen and Carlos?
No questions, all clear.
We're pretty quiet in the chat, but I have to say it is so amazing to hear from both mentors and mentees about the research experience program. It just sounds like an amazing program. If you could kind of sum it up, you know, all of you, right, from your own perspective, right, in just like a word or 2 words, how would you, what would you use to describe the research experience? Not everyone at once.
I'm gonna let the students go first.
Just
I don't know if I could describe it in just 2 words. It's kind of hard to pick the right ones, but I guess if we go hyphenated, it's hard work, but fun. I hate to use the word fun because that's just like so like grade school, but it really was. It was hard work, but it was fun.
love that. Love that. Kiara, what about you?
Okay, I'm gonna go 2 or 3 words. So I would say fast pace when it comes to the amount of learning that you have to do. So fast pace, and I don't want to say fun, but I would say that it was, you know what, fast paced and full of gratification.
I love that. I love that. Those are both great answers. Amy, what about you from a mentor's perspective?
So the way that, I don't know if I can summarize it in a couple words because I'm pretty mouthy, but you know, the way I look at it is I want students to feel like science is approachable and that they are capable of being in scientific research at a very high level.
Awesome. Roxanne, do you have your 2 or 3 word answer for what REU is?
I had not prepared that. I should have done that going last. I will say I don't have 2 words, but every year when I go to see the poster sessions, when I see the REUs at the beginning and how nervous folks are, and then when I see the poster sessions at the end, I am blown away by the intelligence and the exuberance of the undergraduates in the room. And it always, I say this every year, it makes me really excited about the future and the hands that I will be in the future, because all of our REUs are incredibly smart and they're going to make a difference in the world. And I know that I will be taken care of in my old age because they exist. So
No pressure, guys.
no 2 words, but that is typically, so for anyone that's applying and you're like, I just can't imagine that, you will have tremendous strides in terms of your confidence in communicating your science, your understanding of specific research techniques, including the words that Amy said at the beginning. If you're like, I don't know what those are, you will by the end of the 10-week experience, and you'll actually be doing it. We did have a question in the chat, and it was if there's going to be a poster session. One of the pros to a pandemic is that we actually have a virtual platform for our poster session. So there will definitely be a poster session, but it will not be in person in one room. And that way, all of our sites and family and friends can also tune in. It doesn't have to be all of them traveling to Tallahassee in August. So I think that will be really exciting and a really great opportunity for folks to present in this platform, since it seems like we might be moving to more of these types of platforms for conferences in the future. So you'll get experience in those platforms as well when you come to the program.
Well, I have to say this has been such an amazing session about our research experience for undergraduate program. Hearing from the mentors and mentees, it makes me wish I could go back and do it all over again, right? Be an undergrad and have my own research experience. Thank you so much for everyone's input and answers today. We can't wait to share this with more potential REUs in the future. And if you have further questions about the research experience for undergraduate question or program, please feel free to reach out to anyone on this call, but particularly Roxanne Hughes, who can tell you more about it. Thank you everyone so much. And we hope to see those of you tuning in at a future open house event soon. There's many more sessions on the schedule. Come to the virtual escape room or a guided tour on Saturday. We have some sessions later this afternoon if you want to do some hands-on science. Or absolutely enjoy some of our scientist speed sessions. If you are someone who's exploring the potential of an REU, come talk to some researchers, right? Like Amy said, they're regular people who have lots of interests and lots of fun things to share, both about the work that they're doing, but also about their lives. So bring your questions to those Ask Me Anything style scientist speed sessions that are scheduled for the rest of this week and into next week. Thank you everyone for participating today. Take care.